The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit GiveStarQuest.com.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. We're talking movies, books, TV shows, and more, and we are looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in the Star Wars universe. My name's Robert King. Joining me this evening on the panel are Jeff Haecker. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Robert.
And Kathryn Laffrey. Welcome, Kathryn.
Hello.
Sorry about flubbing your name there. Today we are going to discuss Visions, Volume 3, Episode 6, The Lost Ones, which itself is a sequel to the Volume 1 episode, The Village Bride. There we were introduced to a Jedi Padawan with prosthetic legs known as F. Now, in The Village Bride, F embraced her role as a defender of the defenseless, and she cut off her Padawan's braid and declared, "I am a Jedi." Now, in The Lost Ones, she finds herself among another group of people in distress. These are the survivors of carbonite storms on their planet that were caused by a carbonite mine being abandoned during the war. They are collecting carbonite gas in hopes of reversing the damage that's been done to their planet and their people. And they bring F along with them back to a converted cargo ship in orbit, sort of a Noah's Ark out in space, where the rest of the planet's survivors now live. Some kids pester F with questions, and she gives them sort of a lesson, a little bit of a Sermon on the Mount, if you will. And she reconnects with an old friend named Juna, who repairs her leg and suggests she could be a good teacher, kind of like her master had been. She demurs and is preparing to leave when suddenly an Imperial Star Destroyer appears out of hyperspace and demands that she be delivered to them. She decides to turn herself in, and one of the survivors whom she rescued, a guy named Ron, accompanies her, posing as a bounty hunter who turns her in. F is brought to the person who's really looking for her. Turns out to be her dead master, Shadra, who somehow has returned and now is known as Zero. He tells her that the Jedi were misguided. They caused the war and thus must be destroyed. He wants her to join him in hunting down the Jedi. He accuses her of always running away, but when she refuses to join him, he attacks. She says, "My master followed the path of the Jedi and lost his life, and so I will continue to live as that master taught me." Zero cuts off her arm and both her prosthetic legs, but she plants some carbonite gas on him and freezes him solid. Meanwhile, Ron has sabotaged the Star Destroyer itself, again using the carbonite gas. As the Star Destroyer founders, the Ark escapes into hyperspace, and Ron picks up F, and they fly off from the wreck of the Star Destroyer with the cute little droid Lulu, and they follow the Ark. It's an exciting episode. There's a lot going on, and I thought maybe a good place to start would be with this kind of theme that's running through both The Village Bride and this episode, being that we're not dealing directly with people who are in the war, either the separatists in the Republic or the rebels in the Empire. We're dealing with people who are kind of affected by the overspill or the fallout from that conflict. So we'll start with you, Kathryn. What strikes you about like choosing that as a focus rather than sort of the more prominent protagonists, I guess we often get?
I feel like it really rounds out the whole Star Wars universe, because those are the people I always wonder about. What was it like for the people in X village, Y village, next to this or that, and all the chaos that ensued around them? I love that they're giving us these new characters. Ron Nove doesn't sound like a Star Wars name, but that's okay.
I figured at least they could spell it R-A-N, but at least in the credits is R-O-N.
Yes. Hopefully we get another episode where we can find out what F's real name is. I feel like we're still not aware.
I mean, that's sort of an anime trope in like I'm remembering from years ago. There's a Vampire Hunter D, and like there's a sense of you can just use a letter as a name in at least some anime traditions.
Yeah, there wasn't it in the Bounty Hunter episode of Visions where the protagonist also had I'm pulling up what her name was, but she just had a name as like a single digit or something as well as her name, or it was 7, but it was
7, yeah,
but it was SEVN. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's not unheard of in Star Wars either, of like having these kind of names as an initial or or random. I mean, I think it's just you're gonna, in a galaxy full of wide and varied beings, you're gonna have people who go by different things. And F, I've been watching or rewatching a lot of the Clone Wars recently, the animated, and her and her master really remind me a lot of Anakin and Ahsoka. Like F being Ahsoka, the Padawan who kind of left the Jedi, was forced to leave the Jedi and kind of went off on her own. And then the Anakin who became Vader and became a Sith, and it's almost very beat for beat here in that way, with Shadra becoming kind of the Sith Lord, resurrected from the dead, because Ahsoka thought Anakin was dead, and Anakin was dead. He became Vader, and so it's very similar here in that.
From a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view. Yeah. And yeah, I just thought it was really interesting that you see that same kind of dynamic here, except maybe a little bit more extreme, because F did, Ahsoka came out of the war without any, really any physical scars. She had all of her limbs, whereas it looks like F probably lost her legs in the war, it seems like. We don't really know much of her backstory beyond that. So, but we did get that little brief scene at the very end where you see her kind of tagging along with her master, but even younger than Ahsoka was. So it was a little bit different than the Anakin Ahsoka relationship there. But yeah, no, this one I thought was really good and really interesting. It was really cool seeing carbonite used as kind of a weapon in that way, because we've seen it only used as like freezing people. But you have to like put them in a thing to get them frozen. But this was like weaponizing it, or even on the planet, it was like a storm, and it was flash freezing people as it would hit them. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic, because you would see crazy industrial accidents and things like that, which we saw some in like Andor on whatever that planet was. Right. But, so yeah, it is kind of cool how they kind of bring in multiple kind of themes and threads from other Star Wars things in.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up, oh gosh, I mean, there are so many, but I like the comparison to the Anakin Ahsoka relationship, and I mean, this is a dynamic that comes up a lot in Star Wars, right? Famously in Empire Strikes Back, but the sort of join me or die kind of ultimatum, and the I thought the Jedi were good, and now I think they've turned to evil, and therefore I'm going to sort of explicitly turn to evil myself, and
from my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's that sense of, if I, you're somebody I care about and or respect, and I want you to kind of take the same path that I have taken. And there's a sense in which it goes both ways. I mean, there's the, Luke is always trying to bring his father back to the light, and it's, it's not with the threat of join me or die, but there's, there's a fight involved. There's a battle involved in a sense there.
Yeah, their relationship was very interesting, and it took rewatching the episode or season 1 show, which was something Bride. What was it?
Village Bride.
The Village Bride.
Village Bride. Yes. So rewatching that and putting her whole story together from those 2 episodes changed everything for me watching this episode the second and third time.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Village Bride, I was under the assumption that Buckethead, whatever his name was,
yes,
was more him. I loved him. I thought, okay, maybe he's her former master who's given up on being a Jedi. But then, after hearing Zero tell her, "You run away, you always run away," I went right to Kanan Jarrus.
Yes.
Who ran away. But then Kanan also had to run away from the Bucketheads, a.k.a. stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, okay, watching the Buckethead guy in Village Bride and the way he was shooting and everything, he was a stormtrooper once. He had to have been. And then, so she was with him. He was taking care of her after she had lost her master. This is how I'm putting it together. And then to see her then finally accept herself as a Jedi, cut her braid, and then to have her master in this look at her and be like, "Oh, you're a Jedi now." That simple little panning to where her braid was.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, perfect. But then, yeah, there was definitely like this Kanan Jarrus vibe to it. The subtle little things that they kept showing. And it helped me tie in the very opening scene of this with the tribute to Back to the Future.
How's that? Say more.
Because we have her going through these flashback moments. And it's like, oh, you have to go back. You have to watch Village Bride. You have to understand her full story. And you don't understand a person's full story without knowing their history. And so this kind of was just like, okay. It was like, oh, yeah, you got to watch this. First of all, the Back to the Future thing totally threw me off in the beginning. I was expecting something funny, like the whole episode, and it wasn't funny. It was very serious. And kind of neat 40-year tribute to Back to the Future doing a tribute to Star Wars, and here's Visions just flipping it back around. Nice 40-year full circle there.
I guess I'm not catching what Back to the Future reference are you talking about? I missed it.
In the very beginning, when you see Ron in the yellow hazmat suit.
Okay.
And he's extracting the carbonite. That was an exact frame by frame of Marty playing not Led Zeppelin. Was it Led Zeppelin? Or Van Halen.
Yeah.
In his dad's ears, and I'm Vader from the planet Vulcan, and you go to the dance. Right. Yes. So it was just kind of, it was an interesting Easter egg that made me think to really watch, going, hey, what's the full circle here? I mean, probably not all intended, probably just there for fun, but I just found it interesting. She was an interesting character. Her little action boots, the simple little unclipping before she could go really, really fast. In Village Bride, which worked successfully, she was able to move faster than anyone could see. But then against her own master, she couldn't. And so she outsmarted him, sacrificed her legs, her arms, so that she could do the one simple thing. And please, 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 Jeff, tell me you know the name of the stuff from Thrawn Alliances that was in the bar scene. You had it happen twice. Anakin and Thrawn were being attacked, and they had shot this goo at them that started solidifying.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It
this
happened
is from
again.
The books?
Yeah, from the books.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name of it offhand.
Because, that went right through my mind when I saw her, push off of his shoulder. Because Thrawn did a move like that off of Anakin when they were in the bar fight, push off the shoulder. And then having the carbonite start covering this guy was just the weapon that was used against both Vader and Anakin to freeze them. But I think it was turning to stone instead of carbonite. There you go. I can always bring Thrawn into it.
We'll tick that box for this episode. Yeah. Yes. Oh man. No, I also really liked the way F's character arc just developed further. In The Village Bride, she had this kind of arc of accepting her role as a Jedi. In this one, she, it was, fully stepping into that role, and maybe, a hint at becoming a teacher in the future. I agree. The flashbacks were really powerful. And I thought it was interesting that her master said, "You're running away. You've always run away." But in fact, what we've seen of her action in the present has always been stepping forward and even running toward danger, running toward a situation where she was protecting those who could not protect themselves.
Yeah, I think in the Village Bride, that's kind of what set her on this path. She had been, again, to bring it back to Ahsoka, Ahsoka left, basically left the Jedi life behind, and she kind of went off to become a farmer eventually after dealing with all the stuff on Mandalore. And then, but she, accidentally used the Force to save a guy from getting crushed by, I think it was by some crop bundles or something.
Yeah.
And then, so she just couldn't let him die. So I think her, and, that's what I'm seeing a lot of Ahsoka and F, and kind of reluctantly returning to, even though Ahsoka says she's not a Jedi. I think that's a little bit, I don't necessarily agree with that, because she's basically doing Jedi things, and doing everything a Jedi would do. So I think it's she, she's safe to say I'm not a Jedi of the old order, but I think she's, by the time we see her in Rebels and in the Mandalorian and then in Ahsoka, I think she's a Jedi following the Force, which is, if you've read the High Republic, I've referred to this before, but she's very much like a way seeker who's a Jedi who's not kind of beholden to a council or, any kind of overseeing authority. She follows her own path according to the will of the Force. So, and F is very similar in that way. And we saw that very symbolically in the first Village Bride when because she was wearing a mask at first there as well. And part of her arc there was removing the mask and, becoming unafraid to show who she was to the people she encounters. So I think that's, I think that her kind of arc and growth is definitely she's seeing people in need, and she's kind of, maybe not always, maybe reluctantly a lot of the time, but doesn't seem to look like she's going to turn away from people who need help. So
a difference in this episode, though, is at least that jumped out at me, was that she kept trying to sort of isolate herself, to try to be, I'm gonna do this alone. This is my task that I have to do. Even she's, oh gosh, what's his name? Juna was asking if she would stay along with them and be part of their community, and she's like, nah, I need to keep moving. I don't want to overstay my welcome. And you can tell on the one hand she's concerned about them, but also she doesn't actually feel like she's connected to a community anymore. And when she decides to turn herself over, she's not asking for help. She's not asking for how, we can face this together. It's, I need to face this, alone. And yet Juna and Ron and Lulu keep kind of inserting themselves into her work and her mission, and insisting that she's not alone in this, and sort of making connections and integrating her into their family and community, almost whether she wants it or not.
Did anyone else feel like there were parts of the story edited out?
Say more.
There were a couple hard edit moments. First of all, we see that she crash landed on that planet.
Mm.
And I was like going, okay, I feel like there was something to that had happened ahead of time. I actually feel like the crash landing is why the starship showed up.
Maybe.
I don't remember her reaching out and calling the starship, or saying, "Here I am, come get me," or who called.
Are you talking about the refugee ship, or are you talking about the Star Destroyer?
Imperial, the Star Destroyer.
Okay, yeah.
Because I don't remember her calling or turning herself in. And so I was like going, okay, who turned her in? It just felt like there was something missing in the story. And then there was one cut that was like a hard cut, went black screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait, what did we just miss there? Or after they had sabotaged the Star Destroyer and it's going down, there was an odd cut where then visually you see what looks like an explosion on the planet, but it's like, oh wait, was that the Star Destroyer exploding, or was there something else going on that planet? So it was interesting how there were just some odd cuts where I felt like there should have been something more, just to kind of fill in the gaps a little bit there.
Jeff, you were going to say something.
Yeah, without knowing more, it almost seems like she happened to call out in some way in the Force, and her former master Zero heard her, and that's kind of what brought the Empire there.
But she had no idea.
No, I'm not saying she called out to him specifically, but I think maybe she just kind of put a general call out in the Force or something, in that her master could have been searching for her for however long. So I think it's probably just one of the, something along those lines. I guess I didn't really see it as, it is a tiny plot hole. I didn't really see it as like something they edited out, but just maybe they don't have the real estate to do, a full, let's explain every little thing. We've got to move it along quick. So.
Yeah. I think my interpretation was like, after a couple rewatches, I thought, oh, she's probably been on the run from the Star Destroyer for a while, and maybe her ship got damaged in the last encounter, and that's why she had to ground on the planet. So those didn't strike me as plot holes, but they did strike me as I mean, there were a couple of those sort of cut to black, hold on black for like a second, and then cut into the next scene. And like, I think there was one after she was rescuing the people from the building collapse on the planet. And it almost left it as a question whether they actually escaped, because I think the next shot was the storm cloud coming in over the city. Before you see, oh yeah, everybody's on the ship, they're all safe, everybody's good. So I took those as I don't know, suspenseful techniques. But I think they absolutely were trying to get you to say, oh, what more is going on here? What part of the story is missing, and asking you to fill that in with your own imagination.
This is the one episode I really want an in-depth behind-the-scenes show, because there was a lot going on in the backgrounds, and I want to know why they kept showing the church.
Like behind the scenes, meaning like how the animators were making the show?
I want to know, what they were thinking, and just a little more detail. I watched the behind the scenes for Village Bride, which was good and interesting to see and helpful. But with this one, it's like there's an extra layer to everything. And seeing, especially the fact that they kept coming back to the church. Mm-hmm. I think it was in 3 or 4 scenes where it was just like they'd hold on that as like the central image. And I'm like, okay, I need to look that up. Is that actually in reference to an actual church in Japan? I need to know, because it seems significant, especially knowing that a lot of bombing runs in World War II used churches as the visual target.
Nagasaki,
it's easy to
famously,
see.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, I want to know what that is. Then the other thing that visually that really stood out to me, second, third watch, was the poppies.
Yeah.
Show up earlier on. And I was like, oh, I missed that the first time I watched it. There'd be like one little poppy here or there. And then one by her when she was a little girl. So it was quite fascinating to see that kind of like brought in there.
I'm aware of the sort of World War I association with poppies. Are there more associations? You have more of an artistic background than I do. Are there other associations that come to mind for you?
I'm not sure, other than, just like memorial remembrances.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. But yeah, and then, I mean, having the room where Zero was, where he meets her, being this domed room with a, virtual screen, that took me right to the sequel movies where you had Snoke's room.
Oh, right.
And the dome. And so I'm like, okay, so this feels just like, Rey and Ben's fight a little bit. So it was interesting. I thought her master was very unusual. He was like, I don't know, an evil Elrond from the cartoon versions of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Jeff can chime in on that one.
I didn't get Elrond from him, but yeah, no, he was very interesting, because like you said in your summary, Robert, somehow he returned, because they say he was dead because he was killed on Geonosis, I think is what I read. Or if it wasn't in the episode, I think I read that on Wikipedia. So that was the first battle of the Clone Wars. So, there's all kinds of ways people come back to life in Star Wars. So, or maybe he was never, he might not have even really been dead. He might have just been like severely injured, and the Empire brought him back to life like they did Anakin. We don't really get that, really the method or that story here, which I don't think I think it's meant to be open-ended, so you can kind of decide what you want it to be. But yeah, it was very interesting though, seeing that. I just keep going back to Anakin and Ahsoka. It's like if Anakin and Ahsoka had a confrontation, or Vader and Ahsoka had a confrontation earlier than they did in Rebels, and she could actually recognize him by appearance, whereas it took in Rebels, it took a while for them to like fully realize that Vader is Anakin, or Vader is who Anakin became. So yeah, it was, and yeah, that fight was really, I mean, I love the lightsaber battles and Visions, and because they can do some things that you don't do in live action. And I just love how the sabers were almost more like a katana, which I can't remember if we saw that on hers in the first Visions episode, but it was really cool.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, hers is like a katana. His almost becomes a light whip kind of a thing, because when he like swings upward, it like, extends outward even more. And that's, I think, how is when he cuts off her arm or her legs, is in that like extended light whip kind of thing. So I just think, yeah. And they did the light whip in Acolyte, but it was lame because they didn't do it on an actual fight. So it was kind of cool seeing them do it in a way here. But yeah, it was great that she did recognize that he was a better swordsman and she could not beat him through that way. So she had to figure out a different way, which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm. I love how she, like, they were the psychological battle was really fascinating to me. Like how he was trying to play on her and to play on her weaknesses, and she ended up playing on his overconfidence. And again, is your care for your friends is your weakness, your overconfidence is yours, and so that that kind of managed a little more subtly here. But still the same kind of mind games going on, and yeah, acknowledging that she's going to have to suffer the loss of the lightsaber battle in order to win, in order to get close enough to him to use the carbonite. And what did she say at the end? Is something like, I don't have to fight you to stop you, or something like that.
Yeah. And I don't think I think she thought she was not making it out of there alive. I think that was going to be her act of sacrifice, to save, to stop that ship, to let the refugees get away. But Ron just happened to be there too and came back for her. But I don't think
Ron.
Yeah, that Ron.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if the ship would have gone down with just what she did. So it was a good thing Ron was there for sure, man. That was really neat to see. Just all the places he had tucked in the concentrated carbonite gas, and then watching it just billowing out. It was like, oh yeah, that's going to make a mess. Like he said, we made a mess.
Yeah. No, that was... Yeah, so many sort of great moments, like at the very end when he's got her sort of tucked into bed aboard the ship. Their little starship that is going to follow the big arc, and it's like, that moment in Empire again when Leia is tending to Luke, or all these sort of great callback moments of the things that I just love so much about Star Wars. I don't know.
And that ship too looked like the one that the Ghost had for a while on Rebels.
Yeah, it was this the Separatist like shuttle type of craft.
Yeah, it looked a little larger than the one on Rebels, but
yeah, I think it was the same the type of ship, but the one the Ghost had, the second Phantom, was just it was a smaller version. But yeah, I recognize that too, because a lot of these visions, they don't place you in where in the timeline this is, if it even could be in the timeline, but this is very clearly between not long after the Clone Wars. Both the first episode and this one, because they talk about the what happens to these worlds that are, left behind by the Empire or the Republic. Like, no one cares about them. They're just casualties in the war.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another reason I agree that this is one of the visions that I really would love to see developed more into a full series. And we've talked about this on almost all of the Visions episodes. It's like, do we want to see more of this, or are we kind of okay with this as a one shot? And I think this is one of those. I am just fascinated by the character of F. I am completely on board with the journey that she's on of accepting her role as a Jedi, and I, now I want to see her sort of be challenged in that role, and ultimately be challenged not just as a Jedi herself, but as a teacher of others, as that seed was planted.
She was great with the kids.
Yeah.
That was a fabulous teacher moment with the kids, because she was answering their questions without giving them everything to make them keep learning. And then not only that, she also learned from her students. The cute little girl with the blue Loth cat.
Yeah.
And just the way, in Village Bride, F was covering her scar on her face. And so now she's not covering the scar anymore. And the way the little girl's hand just reaches up and was like, what she asked, if Juno was going to fix that for her too.
Right, right.
Like, so it was like, okay, there's a little bit of learning from your students moment too of, what things she has to fix. I wonder what Juno's going to say now when she comes back with 2 legs that need repairing instead of 1.
And an arm. I need a new arm.
And
now.
an arm.
Yeah.
More machine now than woman.
Yes.
Which that was an interesting flip, because she's the Jedi and she's the one who's got all the machine and add-ons.
Well, I think it goes to the point of, it's not, Obi-Wan may be a little bit prejudiced here. It's like, machine doesn't make you twisted and evil. It just means you've been wounded. After all, Shad Ra, aka Zero, seemed to have a completely intact body.
Yeah, and we don't know how they brought him back, because there was that one in the first Visions of this season, the duel, the antagonist of that was a Jedi who basically was now a cyborg because his body had mostly been destroyed. So it could have been something. It probably wasn't, but we don't know. So that could be a way they brought him back, was making him, mostly a droid with cosmetic changes. Because I had forgotten that F's legs were prosthetic until you see, because she actually has these like hologram. It's almost like, I think it's a hologram that like cloak changes her leg to look like a normal leg or something.
Yeah.
So I'd completely forgotten she had those prosthetics.
I didn't even realize her legs were in the Village Bride.
Yeah, I don't know if I did either.
That was like, her Jedi superpower to run fast.
It was
she
pretty
unbuckles
subtle.
Her shoe.
Yeah. But if to look for it, it's definitely there in the Village Bride. But yeah. She's got legs and she needs Juno to fix them. Yeah. Let's get away from that topic as quickly as possible.
You didn't want to keep going with that ZZ Top impersonation. Okay.
Yeah, no. Back to how she was dealing with the children, though. I thought I agree, that was wonderful. And I liked the way it kept sort of cutting away to this other kid and who seemed to be sort of cast out from the circle of kids, and how as she was giving her lessons, it showed little vignettes of another kid reaching out and drawing them back and so on. And like in my intro, I kind of compared it to the Sermon on the Mount, because if you just take it as it is, it's a bunch of mostly disconnected little aphorisms or phrases or teachings, kind of like the Sermon on the Mount, or in Luke, the Sermon on the Plain is presented in the Gospels. It's like just here's all of Jesus's teachings crammed together in one place. And you kind of get, okay, this is F's understanding of the Jedi path. And it comes out of, like, the kids are really pounding her with questions about the Jedi, and aren't the Jedi the bad guys? Didn't the Jedi cause the war and so on? Kind of repeating, or not repeating because we haven't heard it from Zero yet, but setting up for Zero's point of view and showing that this is a way the Jedi are seen kind of on all sides. But her answer is not to defend the Jedi, but just to start laying out these teachings before them. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
The Book of Sirach.
I was just going to say, I mean, the Empire after the war, they, like, if I'm sure it was in Bad Batch and Andor probably, but like they talk about how I think there's, and if not there, it's in some of the books, the canon books too, that it's the propaganda from the Empire that the Jedi caused this war, and that the Emperor was able to put a stop to them and take back control from the Jedi. So it's all propaganda, but the Jedi aren't blameless either in a lot of the way they handled things. Like if they had been nicer to Anakin in some ways, then maybe he would have not, killed executed Order 66, or if they were just nicer to him and more understanding of him. And so anyway, that's a whole other topic.
It is. I mean, I would love to do an episode on like fixing the Jedi. But, yeah.
Well, I mean, and just speaking to that for a second, that the Jedi that I'm always most interested in are the ones like F and Kanan and Ahsoka and these kinds, like the kinds that are like Kanan is my favorite Jedi. And I think it's just that because I'm a big fan of the Legends book series, where the Jedi Order that Luke founded in those is very different than the Jedi from the Clone Wars era. And you could, they got married and could have relationships, but it was recognizing that not to put those above your service to the Force, or, we would say your relationship doesn't come before God. It supports that relationship, or God supports your relationship, and your relationship gets you closer to God, or it should. And whereas in the the Jedi of the Clone Wars times are attachment is evil, and we must, they almost make it by saying, by being dogmatic in that way, they force, that's I think what a lot of what leads Anakin down is he's lost he's had these attachments but never had the proper, he had disordered desires to hold those attachments above his vocation, rather than having them as part of his vocation.
Right. Setting them against each other when really they should have been part of each other. Yeah.
Right.
The other thing that jumped out at me about what she was teaching the kids was like the idea, because they were asking questions and they were asking for answers, and she was talking to them. I mean, the first thing she said was, gather experience, then you will truly grow up. And a lot of what she was saying was sort of how to learn, get experience, look at things, keep asking questions, learn how to tell the difference between what you can trust and what you can't. Think critically, essentially.
Yep.
is a lot of her message there. And I thought, yeah, this is kind of against the kind of dogmatism that you're talking about, Jeff, the kind of very rigid, no attachments means, no attachments at all, rather than don't let your attachments become unhealthy.
Right.
Make sure that your life is integrated, and that the integrating aspect is the Force. It's like, just as in the Christian life, we don't, God's desire for us is our happiness. and so, and our happiness is ultimately found in him. And so he is the integrating, the point where all the other desires that we have should come together, rather than pitting them against each other. And so she's giving them principles for how to make those discernments. And I thought that was very, very cool.
Yeah, that was really, really well done, well said, and refreshing to hear. You don't hear, someone teaching you how to find truth very often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it didn't come off as at least to me, it didn't come off as like preachy or as, now we're going to take a moment for an info dump on Jedi philosophy. It came out very naturally, as, these kids are asking for something and she's doing her best to answer them and to give them what they need. I thought that was very cool.
So do we think there'll be more? Who will she save next?
I mean, like I said, I'd like to see more.
Yeah, hopefully.
I don't know what the long-term plans for Visions are.
Yeah, I don't think they've announced a volume 4. I would assume, based on how the 9th Jedi series that they're making does, could lead to, if there's a Visions volume 4 down the road.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would just repeat, here's one. If you're listening, Lucasfilm, here's one that I would like to see more of, please, and thank you. Because the entire job of Lucasfilm is to fulfill my desires. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Any other final thoughts about the Lost Ones?
Well, we didn't talk about Theo at all. He was Ron's friend on the planet, and who was basically ready. He was in his old house, where his parents or family had been turned into, a carbonite statue. And it's not like being frozen in carbon on Bespin or something, or on Mandalorian ship where you can get unfrozen. It seems like it's a pretty permanent thing. Mm-hmm. And he was ready to just stay there, and because he, was hopeless. And I like that I like that Ron is just seeming a very optimistic guy, and was able to bring him back from making that a decision like that he couldn't come back from. So I just thought that was a nice, and I don't think we really see much of Theo later, but I thought that was a nice little moment for Ron, and it kind of gives you an idea of who he is as a character, which, shows him later when he's impersonating the bounty hunter to bring F to the Empire, and when he's, when he comes back for her in the end, like he's like, because there's a couple ways you could go if you lose everyone you love. Like, you could become very heroic like Ron, and like you want to save everybody. Mm-hmm. Or you could go the other way, and where you just have you don't care about anyone or anything anymore. So I like that they had that, they had someone bringing Ron bringing Theo back from that, and we almost lost them anyway when the storm hit, but luckily F was there to help them.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah.
I think they showed on the mantle when the earthquake first hit. You could see it looked like his wife and a young child.
Okay.
Yeah, so that made it even sadder. It's like,
yeah. It was definitely his family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Kathryn?
Where you
anything?
See another poppy.
Right.
Was right outside. There's one poppy there. So I was like, okay. Yeah, as always, Visions is visually stunning. The backgrounds in this are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, here you have a totally destroyed village, and it still looked beautiful in its destroyed state. Just the colors are fabulous. There was one thing I did not like about the visuals in this, and I don't like it when any animated film or feature does it, and that was when they used actual photographic cells for the Star Destroyer. Takes me right out of shows every single time I've seen it, from Great Mouse Detective when Disney first did this, and other movies, especially when you have such a contradiction between what looks like hand-painted watercolor backgrounds and then you do a digitized photo to make it look like a cartoon, and it's like, I had to I don't want to watch this. But thankfully they had the poppy room, and it's like, okay, and the good fight scene to help bring it back.
I didn't even notice that it was a digitized photo.
I noticed that it was noticeably more detailed than and noticeably not hand drawn. I thought it might have been a digital model that they dropped in. But yeah, in any case, it was a different animation style, and much more photorealistic. And I also found that distracting.
And it's funny because when they opened with the copy of the scene of Marty McFly, that was hand drawn over the photo, so it's like, okay, that works much in the same way Disney did hand drawings over a lot of dance sequences, like with Jungle Book and Robin Hood and Snow White, just to make it a little quicker. They had some down years in the 70s, and so it was like helping them to get the animation out there a little quicker. But at least they were still hand drawing it. This was like not even hand drawn, and I was like, killing me.
Yeah. Well, there it is. We found an imperfection in this otherwise excellent episode. Yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us for this episode. We'd like to take a moment at this point to thank all of our patrons who make this show possible. And we'd like to thank especially Louis I, or Louis I, I'm not sure, Kelly O, Pat G, Sherry D, and Colin H. Your generous donations help us create the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows here at StarQuest. And you can join them by going to givestarquest.com. And yes, that's a new link that we're sending you to, givestarquest.com, to join us by contributing to our work here financially. It also helps us when you follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever your favorite podcast app is, wherever quality pods are cast, as they say. You can also follow us on the StarQuest YouTube channel. And if you want some of that sweet, sweet official Secrets of Star Wars merch, you can get your gear at sqpn.com/merch. Of course, we would like to hear from you. What do you think? What are your thoughts on Visions Volume 3 generally, on this episode, The Lost Ones? Drop us an email at starwars@sqpn.com. Post on our social media pages. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. We're on X at SQPN, on Instagram at StarQuest Network. My personal favorite way is our StarQuest Discord server. You can join that channel going to sqpn.com/Discord and join the conversation. And absolutely join us next time for our discussion of the next episode of Visions, The Smuggler. Until then, Kathryn Laffrey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Robert.
And thank you, Jeff Haecker, for joining us in sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
Thanks, Robert.
Once again, I'm Robert King. Thank you, all of us who are listening, for listening to the secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. PlayStation Portable. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at starquest.fm/PSP.